Hey everyone, what is going on? My name is Brian. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at 10 of my favorite bourbons from 2023. Now, I'm doing multiple lists this year. I don't remember what order I'm posting them in, but I've done craft, non-distilling producer list. I've done rare and allocated. I've done some finished. There are several different lists I'm doing this year. So the bourbons that are in this year are either easy drinking bourbons that are widely accessible, or they just maybe didn't have another category that I wanted to put them in. So instead of doing this, I see a lot of channels and they're doing their best available bourbons of this year, best available bourbons of this year, best available bourbons of this year. And this is the first year in a while I felt like there were some new contenders that kind of dabbled into that category and from early on. And so you'll see some of those here in the placement of these bottles. But to me, these were bourbons that didn't fit into another list. They were just some great bourbons that I had this year. I don't know that these will necessarily be new on your radar, but my hope is that maybe they either are, or that they're accessible, or they're at an accessible price point to compete with some other bourbons that are out there on the market. So let's mention a couple of honorable mentions before we get into the list. These are bourbons that, one, I don't have, and then two, there were ones that I didn't have very much of, and so I didn't feel super comfortable putting them into this list, but when I had them, I thought they were really delicious. The first of which was the New Riff Yellow Leaming. So New Riff is a distillery that I feel like has kind of craft style, but has really interesting systems in place to really push them far, and a lot of things that they're doing in regards to automation, in regards to systems. And they're also one of the first distilleries that we saw experiment with a lot of different types of grains and things like that. And their Yellow Leaming was a product this year that I just really loved. I don't remember what the scale of this is, so this is something we have to keep in mind. Distribution is a little bit different than availability, and so I know that equals one another if it's not available in your market. But sometimes these products aren't actually all that allocated. They're just harder to find, or maybe they're not distributed in your area. So I actually don't know what it comes to when it comes to the Yellow Leaming, but I remember that New Riff has done a lot of really interesting experimentation. It's a brand I really like watching, and I feel like it was really hot at the very beginning. Maybe eyes aren't on them as much anymore because other distilleries are doing some similar things to them. But the Yellow Leaming that I tried earlier this year, really great product. I just didn't have enough experience with it, so it's not technically on this list. Another honorable mention would be this year's Woodford Batch Proof, the 124.7. In previous years and in other folks' lists, I feel like these appear on there and they're really solid products. In past years, I haven't found them to be excellent, awesome, like super great products, and so they don't usually appear on my lists. But this year I really enjoyed it. Probably the same setting that I had the Yellow Leaming, tried this bottle, really enjoyed it for what it's worth, but didn't have enough experience continually with it to warrant putting it here on the list. But another bottle that I thought was really great trying this year, if you've not tried the Woodford Batch Proofs and you've maybe thought about them, or you didn't know, hey, what year maybe should I try? The 2023 release was really enjoyable, and I highly recommend it. All that out of the way, let's dive into 10 of my favorite bourbons that I tried this year. I actually didn't know that this would be on the list because I put another product from this on my top craft list, but as I was kind of going through these and with a couple of the bottles that got bumped to the honorable mentions, I had to put this in here. This comes from Holiday Distillery. It's the Ben Holiday Balled & Bond 6-year Missouri whiskey. So it's 100 proof, but again, for the price and for everything considered, it's a 6-year bottle. It's coming in about $60. Missouri bourbon, and I know that's maybe sacrilege to some people who say, oh, bourbon can only come out of Kentucky. Well, there are other places that are doing bourbon, and Holiday Distillery happens to be one of those places. There's a lot of char, there's a lot of chocolate, there's heavy fruit. The Ben Holiday has been one of the more surprising and enjoyable and continuously enjoyable whiskeys I've had all year. I'm seeing a lot of people pick it up. There's a lot of great praise for this. The Rickhouse proofs are getting high attention too. It's a distillery worth watching. So in number 10, we have the Ben Holiday Balled & Bond 6-year Missouri bourbon. Coming in another 9, we have another really accessible bourbon, 13th Colony Southern Bourbon Whiskey. Now, 13th Colony doesn't have a lot of transparency when it comes to their product. but this is a 95 proof bourbon, comes in at a really accessible price point. And this is one I recommend to a whole lot of people. If you're just getting into bourbon or you kind of want to dabble, even though that's not a Kentucky bourbon, it's really enjoyable. This is one I had some really great experiences. We went over to a friend's house. I brought this bourbon to share. They had some apple pie. We had this with apple pie. Beautiful pairing. A little bit of spice, some good oak presence, just honestly all around a really enjoyable pour. If you've not tried the 13th Colony Distillery, it's kind of like $45, $40, whatever that is, price range. It's a really good, approachable bourbon, great flavors, highly recommended here on the list, especially kind of one of the newer ones. This is, again, one of those products I'd almost always recommend to people who are just getting into it. This is 13th Colony Bourbon. I could not find my bottle of what comes in 8th place. I'm sure it's around here in the studio somewhere, but that's the Bardstown Bourbon Company High Rye. This one and the wheated bourbon, I felt like I went back and forth of all year long. I mean, these released earlier in January, and through all of that, these came out and they were great price points, kind of in that $45, $50, $55 price range out of Bardstown Bourbon Company. These are both 6-year products. And we've started to see some single barrel picks at barrel strength come out of these, but man, that 96 proof shelfer High Rye Bardstown Bourbon Company bottle, I thought was just a beautiful entry to the market. I felt like it had good spice, good sweetness, good fruit. Everything about it was a beautiful product. And that's why it has landed here at number 8 on the list. On a similar note, and moving kind of directly into number 7, is the Bardstown Bourbon Company Wheated Bottled in Bond. So you kick it up a little bit in proof, you change the mash bill, you include a little bit of wheat. And I honestly can't get enough of this bottle. Everything I've mentioned so far in this list are regular recommendations for me when it's people who are looking for a bourbon, maybe something they haven't seen before, or they want to try something new, or for someone who needs a bourbon that's easily accessible. They're all accessible price, and they're usually regularly in stock depending on where you're looking. Now, admittedly, I'm not the hugest wheated bourbon fan, but this wheated bottled in bond gives me tons of flavors. It maybe isn't as sugary and sweet as you know from Weller products, but great complexity, really interesting, unique flavors, kicks, at or above its proof at the 100 proof, and just a really great sipping bourbon. Sure, I'm sure you can mix with it too, but I think it's a really great example. I'll put a lot of things up against this for not only its availability, but just kind of compare wheateds. I think it's got some of those interesting kind of creamy, silky, fruity profile. Great bourbon. Great price point, really easy to suggest to somebody to try if they haven't tried it yet. Again, that's the Bardstown Bourbon Company Origin Series Wheated Bottled in Bond. We're starting to take a little bit of a turn in the list here so far, whether that's because of price point or whether it's because it kicks into a slightly different profile. But coming in number 6, we have the 15-star Platinum Bourbon. This is kind of a pricey bourbon when it comes down to it, but I think a through line you'll see from some of the other whiskeys on this particular list here is I look for bourbons that you can find and that have oak to them. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily always smaller producer distilled or anything like that, but it's a little different than trying to chase down a BTAC or something like that. I don't want to necessarily call it a flaw, but I would say that maybe the biggest knock against the 15-star Platinum is its proof. It comes in at 98 proof, but man, it has some really, really well-aged whiskeys in there. For those who don't mind maybe a little bit more of the tannin, maybe think, I try and think of like Russell's 03 a little bit. It's got a lot of oak, a lot of maybe just a bit past prime flavors there, but some oak to it. I want some depth to it. I want a mature whiskey. I think the first stop on this list that you're going to find is this 15-star Platinum. Really accessible too with its proof point too. But I think maybe because of that, you start to notice it a little bit on the palate, maybe not having the most amount of refinement. And that's number 6, 15-star Platinum. I wrestled a lot with this one, whether I put it on the list or not. Again, full transparency, I work with the brand Sealbox. However, coming in number 5, square in the middle, I have the Sealbox 9 year. So this is a product, it is sourced product for sure. 9 years old, Sealbox out of Jacksonville, Florida. However, when I look for things that I am looking for in a whiskey, I usually look for age and try and put it up against price point. This is a bottle that's coming in at a better price point than the 15-star, and it's also cask strength. I think this is a mash bill that we don't necessarily have a specific source to, but it's Kentucky straight bourbon, 130 proof, came in about $100. This sucker, rich, viscous, coating, very sweet. I had some folks over for a game night here in the studio, and this is one I felt like we sipped on for quite some time. Great flavor, a lot of really nice sweetness, and one I just really love. I keep coming back to this. I feel like maybe I could have put it higher on the list, but again, working with Sealbox, I didn't want anyone to think that there's any specific bias. It's kind of right in the middle, but it had to include it in the list. This is a great bottle at a great price for kind of just nice old whiskey. That is a Sealbox 9-year cask strength Kentucky bourbon. I'm truthfully surprised I haven't seen more people talking about this. We are talking about the Barrel Foundation. When I first tried this bottle, I said, man, I've been able to try a lot of the barrel batches, batch 32, 33, 34, 35. These cask strength whiskeys I've really enjoyed, but there was something a little bit off about the profiles in my particular palate. I think this is the best bottle that Barrel's put out this year. This is 100 proof. It's called the Foundation. It's a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, and this comes from Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, and Maryland. And I tell you, they came out with something at an affordable price point, and I really do think this is the best bottle I have tried from them this year. If this isn't in your daily drinker rotation yet, I really think not only should it be, but maybe it will be in 2024. It's a pretty interesting pour. I feel like, yeah, sure, maybe you taste its proof a little bit, but very fruity, very forgiving, a lot of good caramel, vanilla, kind of brown sugar, cake batter type pocket of flavors. There is some oak there as well too. It's a really well done blend. And again, for its price point, I feel like there really aren't enough people talking about this bottle. Coming in at number 4, we have Barrel Foundation. All right, moving into my top 3, we have the Pinhook 8-year vertical series. This is Bourbon War, comes at 114.6 proof. And honestly, if you love MGP, if you love kind of well-aged whiskey, if you like a myriad of flavors, this one really kind of just kicks. I feel like it's got a lot of things to offer. Oak, brown sugar, kind of pocket vanillas, fruit, all these things. I mean, it's hard to really describe. This is a fantastic bourbon. I've enjoyed it ever since it came out. Tried several Pinhooks this year. One of my absolute favorites so far has been this 8-year vertical series. Really interesting concept when it comes to kind of watching these bottles. I feel like it's maybe underappreciated. I understand why there's a lot of MGP out there, but I feel like you're really starting to see the bourbon take its stride here in this 8-year product. And when I got this, I was really surprised by it. Great flavor profile, really easy drinking, and I keep coming back to it. That is the Pinhook Bourbon War 8-year vertical series. Okay, we're jumping into the last 2. This one, I feel like I've seen some people talk about it, but maybe not enough. This still comes out of Bardstown, Kentucky. This is Lucky 7, the Holdup. Lucky 7's been making some great bottles and some great products from all types of price points, all types of, whether it's finished or age or whatever. But this is a 9-year product coming in at 100 proof. I can understand that this might be a little bit above some people's price range. I think it's north of $100 a little bit. But if you were looking for well-aged bourbon that hits classically, like caramels, leathers, oak, this is an oak bomb. This is really kind of refined bourbon done really, really well. I don't think that fruit is so much its focus. It's more, again, kind of in the caramel, leather, oak category. So if you're one who likes older pours, older whiskeys, this is 100 proof. I feel like maybe it drinks a little bit higher in that proof. It definitely doesn't drink light, but it drinks easy. If you like easy drinking, well-aged pours, it's hard to recommend very much better than this Lucky 7 Hold Up 9-year. I don't exactly feel like number 1 is a cheat code. Some might say that it is. This is Bardstown Discovery 11. For a lot of people, this might not be available in their market, and they might say, why is this not in the rare, limited, allocated? Well, It's at the distillery nearly all the time. I feel like it's got a lot of bottles in production, at least it seems like. It's just the fact that distribution maybe doesn't get everywhere. So for anyone who feels slighted or frustrated by this coming in number one, hey, I hear you, I understand. But to me, I feel like the Discovery series are always meant to be high-end, limited quality, but with more of a mainstream availability. And Discovery 11, I feel like, has been a great example of that. I've thought that while there's been some great discoveries over the last couple of years, I felt like Discovery 4 was just knock out of the park. 2, 3, and 4, I really enjoyed. And there's some other ones I enjoyed a lot in there too. But Discovery 11, I feel like, was a bottle that could be bottle of the year for a ton of people. I mean, to the point, I actually don't know why it's even in this list. I feel like if it's probably just the way that I break down lists. If I was doing an overall favorite bourbons of the year, this has got to be up there. And I think that's why I made this list. And I think that's why it's number one on this list. This is a bourbon not to miss. I feel like while the price has creeped up a little bit, it's uncomfortable for some people. I admit, you know, kind of that 140, 150 price tag. But you are talking about, yeah, sure, okay. I see that it has 6% of some 6-year product in here. And I want to say that's like a double oaked Bardstown Bourbon Company. 21% of a 10-year, and then 73% of a 13-year product, 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. It's a fantastic bourbon. Regardless of list or place or any of that, if you kind of discredit all of that stuff and whatever you see on various people's lists, I think the thing that you need to know is that this is a bottle worth picking up if you see it. I think it's a really great drinking bourbon. A lot of oak, a lot of citrus, fruit notes, tons of complexity. I have tried this on various occasions, and sometimes I have thought to myself, it's like a blend that's been splashed with 6-year that takes something that was great and brings it down a little bit. And there's other times I've had it that has said, whatever they did to make this blend, whatever you think its source is or whatever, it's a great balanced blend. I don't necessarily always like to use the word smooth and balanced. Those things, you know, can cause friction with some people, but I think this is one of the best drinking products of the year. And again, for some people, given their wallet, given their access to products, I think this is a lot of people's top bourbon of the year and would make a ton of sense. Great flavor, good accessibility. It's been a fantastic bourbon. I've loved a lot of what Bardstown Bourbon Company is doing. I love Discovery 11. Highly recommend. So when we're talking about different bourbons that are not necessarily in a rare and limited, highly allocated lineup, finished or anything like that, here number one on my bourbon list, we are putting in Discovery Batch 11. I'd love to hear from you all. What are some of your all's favorite bourbons of the year? Let me know what you all think about this particular list. My goal with this one, again, it's not specific to kind of craft non-distiller producers. It's more so just kind of like some more, while there are craft brands and there are some mainstream brands, it's more maybe hopefully widely accessible bourbons. And some really interesting flavor profiles that I really think are going to be wide appeal, really great flavor, especially towards the end when you're looking for some great bourbons. This is a great list if you are someone who's like, hey, how do I ladder step through bourbon? Maybe I want to dabble a little bit. I want to start with some easy pours and kind of work my way up and what bourbon has to offer. I personally feel like this is a really great list for that. But let me know your all's thoughts in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning into another video, guys. I hope it was insightful. I hope it was informational. I hope you all got something out of it. Let me know some of your all's favorite bourbons here down in the comments below. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, see you all later.